The number one challenge for hybrid meetings in 2022 is that they are no longer optional. Our audience members, our employees, demand more of us. And when they ask, can I join the meeting virtually? The answer had better be yes. We're going to talk about 5 different challenges for hybrid meetings in this live stream today. And number one is that they are no longer optional. But there's also good news. With a fairly simple setup, you can run a hybrid meeting on a budget. And if you only have a laptop phone and a conference speakerphone, you can get a really good hybrid meeting started as well. Welcome to the live stream. My name is Markus. I'm here to help you engage your audience. So we're going to cover these 5 hybrid meeting challenges today. And the number one we're talking about is this idea that hybrid meetings are the new normal for us. So let's dive in a little bit deeper into what does it mean that hybrid meetings are no longer optional. In the past, the standard recommendation when it comes to hybrid meeting was that if one participant is remote, then everybody should be remote, because in the past, it was difficult to run hybrid meetings that actually work. But I think we've gotten over that now. We have had the maturity, the audience has matured in their demands, and the technology has matured. So we can actually run very high quality and inclusive hybrid meetings. So let's get rid of that idea of if one is remote, then everybody is remote, and let's run some great hybrid meetings. The next aspect here is that the technology that we have available with video conferencing solutions like Zoom and smartphones, you don't even need a lot of technology to run a great hybrid meeting, and you can really turn any meeting into a hybrid meeting with fairly simple means. In my previous corporate career, I used to include a video conferencing link with every meeting invite that I sent, because the culture, the company was Johnson & Johnson, a big multinational pharmaceutical and healthcare company. And it was a very decentralized organization. Oftentimes, meeting participants would be at the same campus, or they might be in a different campus. And I included that video conferencing link with every meeting because I didn't know, and also I didn't care how they would join. So in my mind, also already since many years, every meeting has been a hybrid meeting, and I think we will now be able to bring that to a wider context as well. I'll give you another example before we jump into challenge number 2. At the end of last year, I had the privilege of working with a client who hired me to help them improve their video conferencing setup. And initially, the idea was that I would be there on site, and then I would walk around all the different offices and give them tips on how to set up their camera, their lights, their microphone, and so forth. But then, due to new restrictions, some of those participants in the meeting, they were actually going to be joining from home. And it changed nothing. Some of them joined the meeting online. To some of them, I just walked into their office. So I think this is an example of how hybrid meetings are the new normal, and we should meet our audience where they actually are. That's going to be more about that later on in the live stream as well. By the way, if you haven't started running hybrid meetings yet, I did a live stream a couple of weeks ago exactly on where to start. 5 tips to help you get started with hybrid meetings, and that video is also linked in the description below this one. And in fact, everything I'm talking about is linked in the video description below. You can open it by clicking Show More if you're watching this on a desktop. And if you're watching this on a mobile phone, just click the little down arrow next to the title to open the video description. Listen, I'm happy that you're here. We're going to cover these five challenges, and I'm happy that you're joining us for the live stream. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, just put them in the chat. Today's live stream is brought to you by my hybrid meeting checklist. You can download it completely for free at markuspresents.com/hybrid checklist, and that link is also in the description. The second challenge for hybrid meetings in 2022 is that they must be more inclusive. I think we've all experienced hybrid meetings that were not inclusive, and that could mean very practically that we forget part of the audience. For example, if our hybrid meeting looks like this, we have a bunch of people in the room with all the equipment, and some other people are joining online, it is easy to forget the people online, especially in those cases where the people online are the minority. This has been my experience working in my own shows, my own organizations, and helping other clients as well, is that the smaller group is often forgotten. So if most people are in the room, it's easy to forget the people on Zoom. If most of the people are on Zoom, it's easy to forget the people in the room because all of our focus is on the screen where all the Zoom participants are. So I strongly believe that we need to be more inclusive in our hybrid meetings for 2022. And for this, I have some very specific tips. By the way, let me know in the chat if you've experienced these non-inclusive hybrid meetings. When I described the problem, I talked about the people who are joining online and people who are joining in the room. And even talking about them as two different groups of people may not be the best thing. I was working with an organization earlier where they actually had different kind of names for these groups. I'm not going to say who it was or what they called them, but the idea of naming the two groups something different from each other kind of is the opposite of inclusive. So regardless of how you name them, what I do recommend that you do is that you do not see any of these two groups as the primary group. The goal of an inclusive hybrid meeting is that everybody is participating in that one meeting just by two different modes. So I recommend that you work hard on not seeing any of these two modes as the primary one. That will help you build the more inclusive hybrid meeting. We've also seen that in the most recent years, we've seen that employees have experience, or they have experienced working remotely and all the challenges when it comes to inclusion that could bring. So do not make it worse by running non-inclusive hybrid meetings. Hybrid meetings are difficult enough as they are, but so don't make it worse. The goal should always be to deliver, well, I'm going to caveat this in a moment, but I believe that the goal should always be to deliver the same exact experience to both the people who are in the room and the people who are joining online. But here's the caveat, and this is something that I thought about recently as I was organizing a comedy show at a live event here in Basel, Switzerland. Remember how I said at the beginning of the stream that if when somebody says, "Can I join online?" the answer better be yes. And so for this show in September, I did actually set up a live stream so that people could also watch the show via the live stream. And that got me thinking. So while I do believe that for a regular meeting where there's a lot of interaction, you should deliver the same experience for both sides, there can be a time and place for something like just adding a live stream where the people who are watching the live stream, they may not be able to interact so much with the rest of the show. And for those people, I recommend that you think about, do you want to have two different tiers of tickets? So, for example, the people who come to the live comedy show, they might pay $30. The people who are watching it online, they might pay $20, for example. So it is a clear two-tier system. And that doesn't really break inclusion, especially when you make it clear that they are getting a different version. Not necessarily a lesser version, but a different version of the show. So keep that in mind. If you're not able to deliver the same experience, that you try to break it up in two different tiers, maybe at two different prices as well. We're going to continue with the tips here, and the next, I'm going to share two technical tips for you as well. So if you do have this problem that some people are simply forgotten, one of the things you can do is always add a second or a third camera into the mix. So in this image, for example, there is a main camera pointed at the stage, the camera on the tripod there. But then on the bottom right-hand corner, you can also see a phone, which is pointed at the rest of the audience. And in some hybrid meeting setups, which we're going to look at later as well when we come to Challenge 5, that second camera is pointed at the rest of the audience. The rest of the equipment here, by the way, there is a projector, which shows the Zoom meeting to the the room. And then there is a conference speakerphone which handles the audio in and out. So adding a second or third camera is a solution. Here's another solution for you. This is a video bar. So it's the same equipment, but I took away the camera and the conference speakerphone. Actually, so it's actually not the same equipment at all. All the equipment here is the projector, a laptop, and a video bar. And that video bar, it tracks the speaker, and then it zones in the microphones on the speaker. So it focuses both the audio and video on the speaker. And that is a great tool for inclusion, because then there's literally no risk of anybody being forgotten, because as soon as they speak, the camera will focus in on them. So there are technical solutions to increase the inclusion in a hybrid meeting as well. The next group of tips that I want to share with you are going to be challenge number 3. If you're getting value, just hit the like button. If you're getting value from this kind of free training right here on YouTube, hit that like button. Always appreciate it. So the next challenge that I want to cover, and by the way, all the equipment that I mentioned just there is all linked in the video description. And there's this even easier way to find all the equipment. You can go to markuspresents.com/gear if you want to find that list of all the gear. So we're going to move over to challenge number 3. Here's challenge number 3. Too many meetings are boring. Let me know in the chat if you can relate to this. And this, of course, doesn't relate only to hybrid meetings. It relates very much to on-site only meetings and to virtual meetings as well. Most meetings are terribly boring. So I want to share some ideas for helping you solve that. But let's just address the most obvious kind of a boring meeting that we see. It's when a meeting looks something like this, or even worse, it looks something like this. We've all seen the kind of meetings where there is a PowerPoint slide or a set of slides on the screen for the whole 45-minute meeting, and then there's a little person in the corner like I have right here. Can you imagine if I did this whole workshop just with this? Just big slides with me in the corner. It would be the most boring meeting ever. But this is how many meetings, especially virtual meetings, run. Of course, the same problem exists in physical meetings as well, where you have somebody using PowerPoint all the time. But at least there you can look away. When I put it like this, you can't look away really, because it fills the whole screen. So don't use visual aids like this. That would be my first tip. And in hybrid meetings, there's kind of a different there's a different problem that I want to address as well. The people who are there physically and the people who are there virtually, they're going to have different abilities to tune out. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment as well. But if you're joining a hybrid meeting virtually, you can just turn off your camera, shut off your microphone, and go do something else and just listen to the rest of the meeting. The people who are there physically, they don't have that opportunity. So if you're being boring, people can't really leave, and maybe they should be encouraged to leave at some times. So the tip certainly here is to not do things like this. At least if you're going to be sharing slides, at least do it like this, or use some of these other tools that are available to be less boring. So don't use slides. That's the first tip. If, by the way, you would like to learn how to share your slides like I'm doing here, that's available at markuspresents.com/OBS. OBS Studio is the tool that I'm using. So that's the first tip. The second tip is that if the meetings are boring, you should not go. There is a secret function in many email and calendar programs that are called the decline button. Don't go to boring meetings. And if people start declining boring meetings, then that will help us increase the quality of our meetings. And then there's also the third solution. If the meeting is boring, you can just leave. And that is actually the next type of example that I'm going to talk about. And the reason why leaving the meeting is, I think, more acceptable is because it's more easy to do when you're joining virtually. When you're joining physically, it's a little bit more challenging. It requires a little bit more bravery when you're leaving. But I want to talk about leaving, and you should not leave this live stream, because I hope that I'm providing you some value, and if I do, hit the like button. But I want to give you some example of this audience engagement and audience retention, because here's the thing: when you're joining a meeting via Zoom, you are competing with other types of video content. You could attend that meeting, or you could be watching a YouTube video, you could be watching a live stream. And I want to share something with you that you may not have seen before, but it is about audience retention and how quickly people actually leave. And let me know in the chat if this triggers something with you. The point that I will try to make here is that when you see this chart that I'm about to show you, I think you're going to see something and understand something about audience retention and the attention of our audience. So I'm going to put this on the screen right now. Let's put it, I'm going to put it on the screen like this. This right here is the audience retention chart of my most successful video about hybrid meetings. And I'm going to walk you through the details a little bit about exactly what it is that we're seeing here. But this is the video, my first ever hybrid meeting video. It has almost 50,000 views. It is in fact the most viewed video on YouTube about hybrid meetings. So that's why I picked it, because this is what YouTube considered a good video. So the audience retention chart that you can see here, on the x-axis is the time. It's a 8-point-something minutes long video. And then on the y-axis, you can see how many people are still watching at each second. And as you can see, the chart there, the numbers at the top, just over 4 minutes is the average view duration, not even 50%. And this is considered a good video. The point that I'm trying to make with this example is that people lose interest so quickly in video content online, and that includes your Zoom meeting. If you're being boring, people will leave. Let's put an even finer point on this particular point, because in the next on the next slide, I want to show you a zoomed in version of it. So I'll put that on the screen. So here we are focusing on the first 30 seconds of this particular video. Remember, the reason why I picked this video is because it's a good video. I have much worse videos on my channel, but this is one of my most successful ones. So you can see here that 30 seconds into the video, only 63% are still watching. More than 1/3 of the people have already left 30 seconds into the video. So if you do not capture the interest and the attention of your audience in a hybrid meeting or a Zoom meeting or a virtual meeting, you risk losing them forever. And losing them forever is exactly the second key point in this chart, is that once you lose them, they don't come back. And that's brutal. You know, the 1/3 who left in the first 30 seconds, they will never see the rest of that video. They will never come back. So don't be boring is the point that I'm trying to make for hybrid meetings. Let me know if that is a relevant example for you. This is the kind of part of the insights that you get from doing YouTube, is that you get all this data. Okay, I'm gonna move over. Hit the like button if that was valuable to you. We're gonna move over to challenge number 4. And of course, if you have any questions about audience retention and that kind of data and what you can actually learn from it, let me know. Actually, I'll give you one tip. The first 5 seconds of the video is so crucial, because that's when so many people are so inclined to leave. You have to really capture them. So when you saw me start this meeting, I shared with you the first point in the first 5 seconds of the video, and I didn't do any introductions of who I am or even what are we talking about until much later. Okay, enough with that point. We're going to move over to challenge number. Now, number 3 was that don't be boring. Number 4 is the following, and it actually relates to challenge number 3. So challenge number 4 is that we must adapt to the audience and not the other way around. When many of us started doing virtual meetings in, let's say March of 2020, and as we kind of learned a little bit the rules of it, many virtual meetings contained a long block of instructions at the beginning. That you should have your camera on, you should have your camera off, you should have your microphone, this and that. You should put your full screen on, you should not pull your full screen, you should pin this and that. And that kind of makes sense when we're all learning. how to do virtual communication, but now that the technology has matured and our audience expects more, I think we need to get rid of that. So the challenge here is that we must adapt to the audience, not the other way around. So the first kind of very practical thing, get rid of such instructions. The audience should be able to consume the content in the way that they prefer in your hybrid meeting. And one way that many of us consume content is by audio only. We only listen. This happens in a lot of Zoom meetings, that people have their video off. They're not watching, they're just listening. Maybe they're even listening in the background. So the challenge for us here with adapting to how our audience actually consumes our content is that we need to cater for that. If people are only listening to your presentation, do they understand it? One example of how to do that is that when I was describing this chart here, I told you what the chart shows. So even if you didn't actually see the chart there at all, you would have understood that after 30 seconds, more than 1/3 have already left. So adapt to how the audience actually consumes the content. Another example of this, there's a live streaming platform called Twitch that I consume quite a lot of Twitch content, I will admit. And the Twitch mobile app has a setting for audio only. And I would say 90% of the time when I consume live streams on Twitch, I put it on audio only. And the streamers, they have put all this effort into making the visuals look appealing. Same thing now, I spend all this time with setting up my lights and creating all these slides, but many of you are only listening to this. So my presentation should be understandable even if you're only listening. So, and think of yourself, is that the case for your presentation? And this is in fact a challenge. Not only, I'm going to put the challenge back on the screen. So this is not only a challenge for us as meeting organizers, this is also a challenge for us as presenters, as speakers. Are we actually adapting to how the audience actually consumes our content? I'm going to share a couple of more tips on this particular topic. So we talked about only listening. We talked about about describing your visuals, if you're even going to be using visuals. And I'm going to do a third tip as well. This is a bit of a different tip. One of the challenges of running a hybrid meeting is that the people in the room, they're going to whisper to each other. Let me know in the chat if you ever experienced that. And the problem with people whispering to each other is that they are going to be picked up by the microphone in the room, and that will disturb people. People in the room are not aware of this because it may be normal in a meeting room to be able to whisper to each other. But when you have something like this is the conference speakerphone that I recommend, also linked in the description. This is the Polysync 20. So this has 3 different microphones. And if this is placed on the meeting room table here in front, and if I'm speaking into it, the microphones will zero in on me. But if you're speaking on your side, the microphones on this side, they will zero in on you. And it will be amplified and picked up by the microphone. So of course, one of the solutions is to tell people, do not whisper to the other participants. This never works. I say this at the beginning of every meeting. It almost never works. People will whisper anyway. So as we're talking about the challenge number 4, adapting to how your audience actually consumes the content, here's my solution. This is a boundary microphone. This is the MXL AC44, also linked below. And the way it works is that the front of it has all the microphones, all the elements in the microphone are pointed at the front. So it picks up voices from the front, but not from the back. So if I place this like this on the conference room table, from where the camera is standing, I will be picked up. But if people are whispering behind it, they will not be picked up. So you can also do a technical kind of solution to adapt to how your audience actually consumes your content. And that microphone, by the way, it looks like this. I'm going to put up to the well, the lighting is not the best, but it's a small little microphone, and the audio coming from the front will be picked up, but the audio coming from the back will be rejected. So adapt to how your audience actually consumes your content and how they actually adapt. Hey, hit the like button if that was valuable to you. Overall, the point that I want to make with this challenge that we should adapt to our audience and not the other way around is that the processes we run should be natural. And we shouldn't spend a lot of time on processes and instructions and things like that. I'll give you one example from my Toastmasters Club, which is a public speaking organization where I've been a member for many years. I think it's like 14 years now. I lost count. One of the activities that we often do in the course of a meeting is that we have a vote on who was the best speaker in one particular segment of the meeting. But that, when you have participants online and in the room, executing that vote is very, very difficult to do in a scalable, repeatable model, especially if you have different people doing it from week to week. So we have eliminated that item altogether. It just dropped the energy and it was too hard to do, so we just dropped it. So that's my recommendation, is to adapt your meeting processes to how people are actually consuming your content. Make them natural and avoid all these complicated instructions. We're going to do tip number 5, or challenge number 5. So far we talked about adapting to the audience. We haven't talked too much about technology. We are going to talk about technology in a moment. But I hope you take with you some of these ideas that hybrid meetings are the new normal, and we need to make them more inclusive. And after this challenge number 5, I'm even going to do a bonus challenge for you. So challenge number 5 is that the type of technology that you can use for your hybrid meetings, there is just so much variety. There are so many different ways that you can run a great hybrid meeting, and it can be overwhelming. There are so many ways to do it correctly, right? Even in a budget, there's so many different ways to do it. So I'm going to illustrate some of them for you right now. Okay, let's put it, let's do it like this, and put this full screen. And I'm going to walk you through 6 or 7 different hybrid meeting setups that I have used. And here's the thing, they all work. So let's have a look. Here's the first setup we ever used. This is a cheap lavalier microphone on a mic stand together with a Bluetooth speaker and a phone and a laptop. There's no projector, there's no fancy conference speakerphone. Not the best setup, but it worked. Here's another cheap setup. In this one, we still have the microphone and the Bluetooth speaker, but I've added a nice camera. Actually, the same camera I'm using right here. This is the Canon M50. And we added a projector as well. Projector badly framed, incorrectly placed, doesn't matter, it still worked. Next setup. Here we have a laptop, a phone, and a conference speakerphone. So we upgraded the audio. Also works. No fancy camera, no projector, also works. Here's another setup. This is a setup that we ran when the Wi-Fi in our room stopped working, and we had to run the whole meeting on mobile phones only. So I have these 2 mobile phones. One of them was pointed at the speaker, which is me in this picture, and functioned as the screen and as the selfie camera. The second camera was pointed at the audience, also allowed the audience to see the Zoom meeting. And then there's a conference speakerphone. Not the best setup, but it also worked. Here's the next setup. This is kind of what I consider the core decent hybrid meeting setup. There's a phone, there's a conference speakerphone, there's a projector, and there's a laptop. So the laptop selfie camera, it provides the view of the stage. And here we also set up the projector correctly. Also works. Here's another setup. This is our most recent setup. Actually, I'll tell you the story about this. So for the longest time in my Toastmasters Club, I was the person who was setting up all the technology. This is what I've done at work and when I'm working with clients and when I'm running my comedy show as well. Oh, and by the way, if you want to hire me for your organization to help you with your virtual communication, just get in touch. MarkusPresents.com, link in description. Anyway, so I was always the person who was setting all of this up. And then I was asking, would anybody else like to help me? Because you don't need any complicated technology. And this was the result. So in this setup, there are in fact 2 laptops. So one of our members in the club, he brought his laptop and his phone, and the phone is mounted on the music stand there. His laptop is on the table. My laptop is on the right-hand side, and then there's a conference speakerphone. So we get rid of the fancy camera and the tripods, and this also worked. Here's another example. This is a video bar. I mentioned it before. It has microphones, speakers, and a camera, and it replaces kind of 3 devices in one. And this is a system that also works. So the point that I want to make here is that there are so many ways to do it, and my recommendation is to just get started. Get started with what you have. You can worry about what is the best setup later on. If you haven't run hybrid meetings yet, just get started. Just get started with what you have. If you have a laptop and a phone, get started with a laptop and a phone. If you have a conference speakerphone and a projector, hook that up to any device and you'll be good to go. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's more important to start building those inclusive hybrid meetings than it is to get them perfect. So I'm going to have a look at my tips here. And yeah, I mentioned that I have this live stream that I did a few weeks ago about how to start with hybrid meetings. That is linked in the video description. Definitely check that out after this. And when you do choose your setup for the technology, focus more on engagement. Focus more on inclusion and less on the technology. People actually don't care about the technology. So long as they can hear each other well and they can kind of see each other, you'll be good to go. You could use whatever. And I have plenty of other videos going through different aspects of this as well. Another lesson for me was, I mentioned here, let's put it like this. I mentioned here that this was our most recent setup when I actually had somebody else set it up in our clubs. And involving other people is so important in a good hybrid meeting. You need somebody online who can tell you if the audio is good or not. Most of the time it's going to be garbage. So they need to tell you that it's garbage, right? And you need to move the microphone. You need to set it up differently. But also just having some other person setting it up for you, you will learn so much. You will learn by explaining it. The other people will learn by doing it. And so that's another tip that I have for you, is that really involve others in the hybrid meeting setup as well. When it comes to the I have two more tips in this area. So when it comes to the gear, prioritize audio. That's the next tip. Prioritize audio. So long as the audio is good, you don't need fancy video. And do you remember there was a time when we were able to do hybrid meetings with this thing called a phone? You could have like people around the table in a room, and then some other people would dial in to that same room, and we would have a hybrid meeting, but just with no video. It worked. So prioritize audio is my tip there. And if you do want to learn more about how to do video in hybrid meetings, I'm actually going to do a live stream exactly on that topic in 2 weeks. So schedule in Sunday in 2 weeks for my live stream about video and hybrid meetings. I'm going to share some tips that I haven't shared before, actually, especially on how to get your gear to the right position based on some really budget solutions. This live stream is going to redirect you automatically, and there's also a link in the video description. But the overall idea here is that the hybrid meeting that you set up, it doesn't have to be the most technically advanced, but it does have to be the most inclusive, the most engaging. That is what people will remember in a hybrid meeting. Anyway. I'm going to move over to my bonus tip in just a moment. Listen, if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, just hit that big red subscribe button. There are new communication tips coming out every Thursday. This coming week, there's actually going to be a video that I worked really hard on about how to use a microphone, specifically how to hold a microphone, like this, for example. So hit that big subscribe button. It's free. It's completely free to subscribe. So the challenge number 6, this is the bonus challenge, is this. This is my challenge to you, is to add one thing. If you haven't run hybrid meetings yet, then just add the hybrid option to your meeting. If you already are running hybrid meetings with let's say a speakerphone and a couple of mobile phones, then add a screen to it or add a better camera. If you are already running very high quality hybrid meetings with 2 different cameras and excellent audio, then try to add a third camera. With Zoom, for example, it's very easy to log in with multiple devices into the same meeting. If you already are running full-fledged hybrid meetings where everything is working beautifully, add a live streaming element to it. Try broadcasting that meeting as a live stream to YouTube or to Facebook. And it's not necessarily that people need your live stream on there, but it's just one way to level up. So just add one thing. This is the kind of principle that I've applied when I built up my hybrid meeting setup. You saw like those 7 different setups. I've always tried to add something else, and I'm going to add something to the next hybrid meeting as well that I'm running in my club also. So just add one thing and keep building your competence when it comes to hybrid meetings. If you want my checklist on how to start doing hybrid meetings, or actually best practices for hybrid meetings, just go to markuspresents.com/hybrid hybrid checklist. That is also linked in the video description. I'm going to go over some questions from the audience in just a moment. But before that, I am going to recommend another video. So if you want to really level up your hybrid meetings, then click or tap the screen right here. And if you want to watch another video from my channel, then click or tap the screen right here. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.